The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates and does not necessarily reflect the views of this station or Forever Media Incorporated. Rick Jensen on 1150 AM, 1017 FM, WDEL.
Well, you know, I've been a client of Dan White, financial planner, specializing in retirement income for, a few years now, and always love to hear the advice he has. So every Wednesday afternoons at 1 o'clock, unless he can't, he calls in and shares some knowledge and advice. Dan, thanks for being on, buddy. How are you?
Well, Rick, it's not only when I can, it's sometimes when you can as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Busted last week. But wait a second. Okay. Last week I was out because I wrenched my back. But wait a second. Wasn't there a time when you couldn't make it and I couldn't make it the same day?
Yeah, I think so. It depends upon our schedules, but we try to do it Wednesday after the news. Let's put it that way.
That's so funny. Yeah. Well, I do that just to rib you a little bit, but you got me right back. Well done. Appreciate that.
Yep.
People like to keep things simple, and far too often in your business, and what you do, things get complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. It's not always simple. And I say that because, for example, when my dad retired and I was helping him out, he had a number of different little IRAs. And can you merge them all into one account, things like that? And sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. But imagine this, here you're retired and you got like 4 or 5 rollover IRAs and things like that. And you'd like to, just manage it easily. What's that called? And how can you do that? And what are some things you got to watch out for?
Well, everybody thinks it's simple, and everybody kind of gets the gist of, hey, I know when I turn a certain age, and people still refer to 70 and a half. And, again, the Secure Act changed that. It's now 72. But they all know, hey, at a certain age, I got to pull money out of my retirement account. So, and it's funny because all the custodians, no matter where you have it, whether it's an IRA or a 401k or wherever, they'll probably send you something out saying, hey, this year you've got to take out an RMD, and it's $10,000, and you got to make sure you get this out. So the problem is whether or not you can aggregate these RMDs. So, and before I tell you the rules, let me just say the rules don't make any sense because the government kind of wants you to screw it up so they can get more money. So here's an example. Let's say we got a guy.
Wait! You can't just say that and not have someone comment about that. They make these rules so you screw up and they make more money. Really?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wow.
And I'll show you why. So let's say we have a guy, he's 74 and he's retired and he has 3 retirement accounts, 2 at a bank and 1 with a former employer, a 401k. So the ones at the bank are IRAs. So Bank 1 sends him, hey, this year you got to take out 10 grand. Bank 2 sends him a letter saying, hey, your RMD is 17 grand. And his former employer had a 401k, and they sent him a letter saying you got to take out 25 grand. So his advisor at the bank says, okay, well then the total is 52,000. We'll take that out of your IRA here at Bank 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the guy says, okay, fine, I'm done. I satisfied the rules. I took out 52,000. That's what they told me from the 3 accounts I had to take out. Now let's say 6 months later, the advisor says to him, hey, you know what, we ought to roll over the 401k. Let's roll that over to one of his IRAs. Okay?
Okay.
The 401k is going to tell them, okay, we can roll over a part of it, but we have to cut you a check for $25,000 for your RMD.
Huh.
And what's the guy going to say? Well, I already took my RMD. I took it from my IRA.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that. Okay? Because one was a 401k and one was an IRA. So even though he took the right amount out and the government got the right amount of tax dollars, okay, if he did not take that $25,000 out of the 401k, he would have been hit with a 50% penalty.
Damn.
Okay, and he would have had to write a check to the IRS for $12,500, and then in addition, they still would have made him take out the $25,000 and pay tax on it. So you've got to be careful with these RMDs. So the basic rules are this: if you have all IRAs, you have to calculate the RMD for each IRA separately, but then you can take the total and you can take it from any one of the IRAs.
If they're IRAs, okay. Now,
if they're all IRAs, you can figure out the RMDs, add them up, and take it from one.
I'm going to mess you up with a question here.
Go ahead.
What if one of them is a rollover IRA from your 401k?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, just IRAs, and it includes SEP IRAs and simple IRAs.
Okay.
So they all fall under that IRA category. Now let's move on to 403Bs. Okay? 403Bs, if you had 3 of them, you can add them up and calculate them and add them up, and you can take it out of one.
All right.
Okay.
And for people who may not know, 403B is very common with school teachers and government employees.
School teachers and hospitals.
Yeah, it's kind of like their version of the 401k, kind of.
That's right. And now when you get the 401ks, it's crazy. If you had 3 401ks, you have to take an RMD from each one individually.
Really?
Yes. You can't aggregate 401ks. Okay? And now comes the kicker. You can't take one from one out of another. You can't take a 401k RMD from a 403B or an IRA. You can't switch these things up.
So if we want to make things simple, let's say you're retired. You left your money.
You can't make things simple with this.
I'm starting to learn that. So what if someone's retired, they just left their money in the 401k because the plan administrators allowed them to and they wanted to?
Right.
Can they consolidate all 3 of those 401ks into one rollover IRA and then just do it that way?
They can. Okay. Yeah, they can, and sometimes that does make things simpler. Consolidation and make it all IRAs, that makes life a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Now, here's another one. Husbands and wives, I've seen this. Well, we calculated, we took it all out of his. You can't do that either.
Oh.
So even though they're both IRAs and you took out the right amount, if you didn't take anything out of the wife's, then you're in that penalty situation.
I'm glad you have to mess with this stuff.
So they really make this where if you make a mistake, you're going to be writing checks to the IRS.
And you think that they actually do that on purpose?
Well, it'd be a lot easier if they changed the rules, but they're not going to.
Yeah, I guess. Why would it be so complicated?
Doesn't have to be, but again,
Well, I wonder.
They just say, hey, here's your total retirement accounts, and figure out what the RMD is, and take it out from wherever you want.
Yeah, because they want their money, but
they want their money.
They want your money, not their money. They want your money. Yeah. But I wonder if it's so complicated because these rules were made at different times, different legislation years.
Yeah, but I mean, they could certainly simplify them, but there's been no, I don't know. Maybe the accountant union or whatever is
make it complicated. We got to keep our jobs.
Exactly. That's it.
Oh man, yeah. And I know you consult with accountants, CPAs, tax attorneys all the time as well.
Yep.
So interesting. If we learn anything from these conversations, is that you got to be really careful. You're going to do this stuff yourself, and it always makes sense to hire somebody who knows what they're doing.
You see the big mistakes, and when you get into the larger numbers, Rick, I mean, you're talking big penalties and big tax bills, and nobody likes to pay the government more than they should.
Well, true. Yeah, I know. Right.
Right.
Now, here's something else I want people to know, that every Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, you have your own show called On the Money.
Correct.
What's on this weekend?
This weekend, it's kind of a 2021 review, a mid-year review. What should you be looking at for your retirement plans if you're trying to review things mid-year?
The checklist. The punch list.
The checklist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, jeez. I hate that stuff. It's so annoying. I do. It's like, oh, man, I hate that.
Well, it's the last week of summer. And probably anybody's going to be listening anyway. So.
Dan White.
We're going to be down the beach.
Yeah, right. All right, Dan, you can get a hold of Dan at 888-690-8820. Have him take a look at what you're doing and maybe put a plan for you together. 888-690-8820 Middletown. Also just over the border of Route 202 up there in... Glen Mills.
Glen Mills.
Yeah, Glen Mills. All of a sudden, brain went summertime on me. Good stuff. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it, buddy.
Have a great day, Rick.
All right, sir. 888-690-8820.